He used to be the darling of the left, and now he's forgetting the countless scores of human rights abuses in 22 Arab states, viewing Islam as completely beyond reproach. I would argue he ain't a journalist anymore. He's a one-man tribunal exclusively for Jews who, quite frankly, don't hate themselves anywhere near enough. I don't think he's even ever been to Israel. I've been twice, Dan, and I don't recognize the slander that he churns out on a regular basis to appease this increasingly fringe audience.
So let's kick off the top 20. And it's a new entry for those centrist dads obsessed with Farage and Truss, led by donkeys. Heroes of the elite class, Oliver Knowles, Will Rose, James Sadri, and Ben Stewart are fiddling with cheap stunts or billboards designed to humiliate Liz and Nigel while Rome burns. Meanwhile, on the major issues of the day, including the shocking corruption of this Labour government, there is a deafening silence. And Darren Grimes, isn't it quite astonishing that these guys are just continuing with their nonsense when actually there is so much corruption currently being taken place within the UK government itself?
Absolutely, Dan. I couldn't have said it any better myself. I mean, they are living proof, actually, that if you leave political activism out too long, it can rot, right? I mean, they were still dragging around the 2022 lettuce gag like it was a new punchline last year when they targeted Liz Truss during her book tour, who, Dan, at that juncture, she wasn't even a member of parliament, right? She certainly wasn't in government, but ignoring all of the power coming out of Downing Street and instead going after the ghost of prime ministers past, forgetting all about, as you put it, cancelling elections, winter fuel allowance cuts, the benefits cuts, the farming tax, the national insurance increase. That's actually, I would predict, create a new workless generation in this country. But forget all of that, Dan, because these leftists, they aren't the anti-establishment activists that they tell you they are. They're so far up the establishment's arse that I sincerely hope with all of my heart that Sir Keir Starmer is charging them rent because he might be able to give a bob or two to pensioners if they're paying them enough. I call them, Dan, I call them craft beer crusaders, right? They think that cycling into Dover with a poster is somehow akin to what those men did in storming the beaches in Normandy. They pick on powerless people to actually feel powerless, sneering at the kind of people that voted reform. You know, I just find it, this whole Guardian reading ragtag, it's reheated gags, middle class snobbery, and I loathe it. I detest it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the thing is, Jasmine Birtles, actually, it's just not funny. The Liz Truss thing is particularly ruthless and mean. And if you actually just dig down into their obsession with the Daily Star's letters, actually, what's so shocking is that the deep state in this country, the British deep state, were able to force out a prime minister because she was challenging the economic orthodoxy within such a short period. That's what people should be more concerned about.
I agree. And it's not, I think, generally understood that the government doesn't run the country. It's really the blob. And in particular, it's the Bank of England. And we have a governor of the Bank of England who, in my view, shouldn't really be able to get a job with the gas board. I think he was terrible at the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority. He's even worse here at the Bank of England. And my view now with the Bank of England is whatever they say, take the opposite. Very much so. And as you say, it was them that ousted Liz Truss. Her ideas were pretty good in my view. Though, it was a bit too bold perhaps, but I remember her, Kwasi Kwarteng giving his speech and me thinking, yeah, pretty much that's pretty good. But no, the blob, the establishment didn't like it. And with these guys, with them led by donkeys, they remind me also of those hate organizations, Hope Not Hate and Stop Funding Hate. you always know if there's hate in the title, there's hate in the heart. So they say that they are not, that they're going against hatred, etc., but they are themselves promoting hatred, it seems.
Yeah, that's a great point, isn't it, Darren? Because actually, some of this verges on bullying. I mean, of course, they can do it if they want to, but there's trespassing, there's invading into private spaces, there's taking over an event. Put it this way, if this was a right-wing organization conducting these types of stunts against former politicians on the left, I imagine the group would very, very quickly be shut down. Probably be arrested. They'd be locked up in this two-tier
Absolutely.
world.
Of course they would. Of course they would. I mean, you get the police turning out to your house, Dan, for writing some criticism about your school these days. Never mind any of that. I just see it as class contempt, ultimately. And that's something that I've always hated with every fibre of my being. It's this North London sarcasm. And they're basically, if I can put it like this, they're a bit like Japanese soldiers, right, who were out in the jungle years after the war had ended without realizing that the United States had won. You know, they're out there with their rifles yelling, Tories, Tory, I could see a Tory, when no one is listening or concerned about the damn Tories anymore. They're about as relevant. They're so backbench, Dan, they've fallen off of the sodden backbench.
I know, that is such a good point, isn't it? It's like, fight the real war. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected here on Outspoken, but I've also increasingly been thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. But boy, oh boy, I have the fail-safe solution. I use it myself, and what is more, this VPN, or virtual private network to use the full term, is a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So I want to introduce you to Surfshark now. It's an incredible, easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activities stay safe so you can shop, stream, browse, conduct your banking, whatever you want to do online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe, because it also allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and international streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, Peacock, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, within seconds, and you can be watching as if you're in another country. This is particularly handy, by the way, if you're traveling for work or on holiday, because you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. And this is an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries, like France, which keeps Rumble blocked now. How insane. This is true freedom, though, provided by a VPN, allowing you to watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It can also save you money, because did you know that some of the best deals on websites change depending on where you're buying from? So they'll change their prices so you can buy from wherever gives you the cheapest price. It's amazing. There are other benefits of Surfshark too. You can use it on unlimited devices, which means your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips with, and this is really important if it is your first time using a VPN, 24/7 customer service. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. And what's more, Surfshark's so confident that they are the best VPN in the world. I can tell you they are, because I use it every day. You can give it a try for a full 30 days. If you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So what a great deal that is. Surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. Okay, let's move on. In our countdown at number 19, he is down 11 positions from last year, and I have a feeling Darren Grimes is going to like this one. I'm, of course, talking about the Guardian columnist Owen Jones. Remaining a malignant force on the left, Jones's influence has waned because of his deranged denial of reality over the attack on Israelis on October the 7th, and ongoing accusations about his appalling behaviour towards women at The Guardian. But the extremist continues to be given a major role in the legacy media, which ignores equivalent voices on the right. Darren Grimes, you've got a bit of beef with this guy, right?
Oh, he doesn't like me very much. I met him at Tory party conference once, many moons ago, and back when he was actually able to go about these places. Now he's on the extremist fringes, and he completely blanked me. He refused to speak to me at all. That's typical of the left. We on the right think that they're
Maybe he
mistaken.
fancied you.
Oh, well, I mean, who could blame him, Dan? Who could possibly blame him? But look, right, he's gone from boy wonder, right, and he's still got that sort of youthful look, to a complete broken record. All he's focused on, Dan, now is Israel. Like, you would think it's the only country on earth that can ever do anything wrong. I mean, we're seeing loads of pictures on screen right now of him on the BBC and all these other things. He simply isn't in the mainstream picture anymore, right? And maybe that has its merits. I certainly think so. But he used to be the darling of the left. And now he's forgetting the countless scores of human rights abuses in 22 Arab states, viewing Islam as completely beyond reproach. I would argue he ain't a journalist anymore. He's a one-man tribunal exclusively for Jews who, quite frankly, don't hate themselves anywhere near enough. I don't think he's even ever been to Israel. I've been twice, Dan, and I don't recognize the slander that he churns out on a regular basis to appease this increasingly fringe audience. Even, Dan, get this, he attempted recently to paint the BBC as some kind of Zionist propaganda machine. The bloody
I
BBC.
know.
All because one Jewish editor didn't editorialize in the way that he would have liked them to do. This is the BBC, Dan, that funded Hamas via a documentary with one of the Hamas leaders' children.
Yeah. Documentary, I would say piece of propaganda, actually, which they
absolutely
had to take off the iPlayer because it was so appalling. I mean, it is interesting though, isn't it, Jasmine? Because I do think his influence is waning. I think the game is up somewhat, but for some reason, the mainstream media continues to platform him.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because to me, he's like sort of the Guardian's answer to Greta Thunberg,
Yes,
really,
yes.
Swedish doom goblin. And and like her, he has become, as you say, much more irrelevant and more embittered, it seems. And he, like so many in his group, he has no sense of humor. And when you have no sense of humor, it's very difficult, I think, to get dried up and wizened. And that's kind of the way I feel. But I agree with Darren about this obsession with Israel. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can say, good and bad, of what Israel's doing and of what the Palestinians doing and the Arabs are doing. But when you get so extreme as the left is with the Islam vote, there's something wrong. I mean, I was very interested to see the King and also that conversation between Starmer and Sadiq Khan, all about how marvelous Islam is and how wonderful it's been for this country, etc. Now, when you've got both of those, you've got the King and you've got our Prime Minister, both very prominently saying, oh, we love Islam, oh, we really do, we're so grateful for it, etc. You think they must realize that more and more people are thinking the opposite in this country. This, to me, says that there's a bit of desperation here. We're trying to keep on hold of the Islamic vote and stop them doing anything against us, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Darren?
No, it definitely is. I mean, ultimately, what I would say, it's never basically at the BBC, Dan. I think I could safely say there's probably never been a worse time to be Jewish at the BBC, for example. So I think that should give viewers every measure of the man they could possibly want, because it isn't about journalism. This is a twisted obsession. I would actually say he's got evil in his heart at this point. And in any sane world, he would be universally called out for what he is, which is vile, vindictive, and Viren, I would say, really quite horribly close to the worst, oldest prejudice of all under the pretense of progressive concern, progressive my foot. And do you know what, Dan? If he wants to get himself out to Gaza, I'm sure that you and I would find a way to crowdfund. I'm sure Jasmine will chip in too.
Happily.
A crowdfund for his trip
Happily.
there.
Yeah, that
I
would be
mean, I'm
interesting.
sure they'll absolutely love him there and they won't try and throw him off buildings or anything like that. I mean, honestly, what an absolute idiot. At number 18, speaking of idiots, a new entry. It's scheming Sturgeon's successor, John Swinney. Brought in to steady the ship after the disastrous 13-month reign of Humza Useless, the Scottish First Minister has fast returned to Queen Nick's playbook by sparking division between his people. That has started by describing Nigel Farage and even Reform UK voters as far right. So Darren Grimes, as a new candidate for Reform UK, this was quite a moment, wasn't it? Nigel Farage had been predicting it for some time. He thought it was going to be Slippery Starmer who would be the first to brand all of you and all of your voters as far right. But no, it was that hard leftist First Minister of Scotland.
At least we can tell what a woman is, Dan. You know, I would basically describe John Swinney as Scotland's answer to stale porridge. And Scotland, of course, is a home of porridge going back quite some time. But he's stale. He's been left out there far too long. That party has been in power since 2007. And you're right. He decided that actually the biggest threat to public life wasn't poverty. It wasn't the massive drug industry that's prospering in Glasgow. It wasn't the failing schools, too many kids leaving school unable to actually read and write, but a political party that didn't even win a single seat north of the border. And his grand plan was to put together a coalition of the completely undesirables to freeze out reform from Scottish politics altogether. He wasn't proposing debate, Dan. He wasn't proposing beating them at the ballot box, but to banish them out of speech and debate altogether, like some kind of tartan inquisition, all too familiar with the SNP's Scotland. And this isn't about protecting democracy. It's about controlling it. This is a party obsessed with maintaining and holding on to power that's slipping away from them. If the Labour Party wasn't so useless, Dan, they would walk the next election. They really, really would. They're obsessed with breaking up Britain, but, you know, their desire for reforms, to challenge reforms, ideas around controlled borders and free speech, they say, oh, that's a step too far. It should tell every voter what an independent Scotland would look like. Less free, swallowed up by the EU, and led by a contemptible party of incompetence.
Here. Couldn't agree more. And Jasmine, actually, it is a good point that Darren makes, isn't it? John Swinney will probably remain the First Minister of Scotland. SNP will probably win the next Scottish election. It's got nothing to do with the performance of the SNP, which has been absolutely diabolical. They have destroyed so many aspects of Scottish life, but it is because Scots are now completely turned off by Labour after seeing the complete shit show at Westminster under Slippery Starmer. So, indeed, there is a potential Reform UK surge happening in Scotland. That's why Swinney has gone immediately to brandish this far-right term. Do you think it's becoming meaningless, Jasmine? A bit like now if you call someone a racist or a transphobe, is it almost meaningless? Like, should we just start embracing this? Do you remember after the riots last year, there was this movement on social media where brilliant people like Father Phil Harris and Alex Phillips all banded under this hashtag far-right thugs unite.
Yeah.
Do we almost have to embrace the term?
Well, I certainly have. Yes, I like to call myself a far-right thug, and then I go on to...
And you're about as far from a far-right thug as you can get.
Far-right thug, yes. Hello. And it really is that it seems to be, you know, you are far right if you believe in marriage, if you believe a woman is a woman and a man is a man, if you question COVID, if you question the climate change thing, if you question Ukraine, and if you are, frankly, you know, a decent human being who likes to earn their money and not depend on the state, that's all horrendously far right. While at the same time, genuine far-right groups like the Azov Battalion in Ukraine, they're not really far-right, even though they have their Nazi flags and they're very proud of it. No, we forget about that because we're funding them. That's absolutely fine. No, it's the families and the decent people who are concerned about the way we're running our country. Those are the dangerous far-right thugs that we all have to keep away from. And it's interesting, I think, that what Swinney's ideally wanting to do, as Darren says, is just control. And his version of control is like we're seeing in various other European countries, to ban any country, any organization that looks like it's a threat. We've seen it in Romania. We're seeing it in France, where it looks like they're going to jail Marine Le Pen. Now, they're saying she's done this, that, and the other. But I mean, clearly it's just because she's very popular and they're really worried that she might actually win. So this seems to be their only way of winning. If you want to win and you're really rubbish, just ban or jail the other side. That's their answer.
Yeah, I know. It's utterly, utterly terrifying on so many levels. Really irresponsible, really disgraceful. And John Swinney, who up until that point had potentially been seen as quite a centrist figure, sort of like a guy who you didn't really need to pay much attention to. My ears pricked up and I thought, no. He was scheming Sturgeon's deputy for all of those years for a reason. This is a very, very bad man who fully deserves his place in the top 20.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.